They put me in the bunk room above the bottling line. The fan rattled like a tired cicada, the air smelled faintly of cork and wet cardboard, and the pipes in the wall clanged whenever someone ran a hose downstairs. Nobody protested on my behalf. Why would they? To them, I was still the one who left the family vineyard to chase a hobby. No one knew I was the winemaker who had saved the place. The Reyes family reunion rotates cities every summer, but when my mother insisted on holding it at Stone Hollow, our 100-year-old vineyard tucked between two Finger Lakes in upstate New York, I understood it for what it was, a chance to polish the family story without mentioning the messy parts, new labels on old bottles. Sophia, my older sister, arrived first with her husband Evan. Hugs bloomed around them like fireworks. My mother, Teresa, tucked Sophia beneath her arm the way she used to tuck recipe cards, careful, proud, possessive. Then I walked in with my overnight bag and my work boots tied together and hooked over my shoulder. My mother's smile cooled a shade. "Maya, you made it." I said I would. She blinked at the boots. "And you got those?" "They're lucky," I said. Evan glanced at my jeans, then at Sophia's silk dress. "Still dressin' like you're about to crawl under a tractor?" "Some of us do, or we go where the vines actually are." From the corner, Cal, the vineyard manager, lifted his chin at me, a quick greeting only I seemed to catch. Cal knew. He was there the night the storm shredded our nets, and I stood with him in a flashlight circle at 2 a.m., casting grapes off the vine, deciding block by block what we could save. He was there when I signed the papers with the community trust under a pseudonym, when I wrote Northstar on the line for head winemaker because I needed the work judged without my last name stapled to it. They assigned rooms in the farmhouse like always. Sophia and Evan got the master suite. My parents took the room with the view over Road 23, the one our abuelo loved best, and the cousins split the rooms that didn't creak as much. Cal cleared his throat. "We still have the loft above the lab." My mother cut in. "Maya won't mind the bunk." "I won't," I said. At dinner, the long table was staged in the barrel hall, where the air carried the perfume of French oak and the faintest ghost of last year's Pinot. I was seated behind a post that scratched my shoulder every time I moved. Sophia placed her phone face up like a second dessert plate. Notifications chimed and flickered. The words legacy and brand floated around like fruit flies. Evan raised his glass. "To Stone Hollow, and to the woman who kept it all together." He tipped his glass to my mother.
There were clinks, throats cleared, an approving hum. I stuck to water. When the server, a college kid wearing a too large apron, brought me an extra plate of roasted beets, he whispered, "Northstar says thanks for the last-minute yeast order. We made it in time." My mother's head turned, just a fraction. "You know the staff?" "People," I said, "tend to say hello back when you look them in the eye." The meal unspooled like a family recipe no one can bear to rewrite. Evan talked about his new promotion in logistics. Sophia showed the kitchen remodel on her phone, her husband acting bored enough to be convincing. Someone asked if I was still into wine stuff, like fermentation was a fling I'd grow out of. "I am," I said. "And the money?" Evan asked, a playful cruelty in it. "I have enough." "For what?" my mother said. "Pass the salt, mija." "For Went? For harvest? For steel tanks when a hailstorm rips our nets and we have to press faster than the sky can fall?" They laughed like I'd told a joke. Halfway through the main course, a woman in a navy blazer that said "County" in stitched thread stepped into the doorway with Cal behind her. She scanned the room and found me behind the post. "Miss Reyes," she said, "do you have a moment?" Evan chuckled. "They need you to move your car?" I stood. "Excuse me." In Cal's office, his desk, a topographical map of paper, he shut the door. The county official extended her hand. "I'm Deputy Marshal. We tried emailing Northstar and got a calendar block back from M. Good to finally, well, almost, meet you." Tomorrow at noon, we'll do the plaque and the citation. The board wants to recognize the anonymous winemaker who stabilized the winery and grew our tourism numbers after the flood. If you still want to keep the name quiet, we'll work with it. Anonymous is fine, I said. My pulse was steady. The work is what matters. Your call, she said, smiling. But for the record, it's a hell of a story. After she left, Cal leaned on the doorframe. You sure you want to stand behind the curtain? They're breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back out there. I'm sure, I said. Then, after a breath, mostly. There is a thing that happens when you spend enough nights walking the rows alone. You think you're listening to owls and foxes, but really you're listening to the part of your life you never had words for. I took the long way back through the crush pad, where the floor still wore the faint purple tattoo of last season's Merlot. Abuelo Luis used to keep a spiral notebook in the tack room where he wrote down everything: bud break dates, rainfall, who cried at dinner, and why. It still lived there, under a tin of mismatched screws. I paged through until the ink turned shaky in the last entries. In the margin beside a 2006 harvest note, he'd written in Spanish, "Maya has a map in her mouth. When she tastes, she sees." His script snagged. He'd drawn a star. The next page was a series of scores in 3 columns from the year my mother made Sophia and me do blind tasting with jelly beans because wine was too adult. Abuelo had written our initials at the top, MST. My mother's numbers were careful, consistent. Sophia's spiked and dipped. She chased what she liked. Mine were a scatter of high marks over flavors I could never name then, but can now. Mineral, bruised pear, storm air. On the bottom edge, in pencil, Abuelo had written, "Give her the keys before they take the door." I didn't cry. It felt like grief had smoothed itself into something else, like river glass, sharp once, softened by time and movement. I closed the notebook and slid it back. Back at the table, dessert had arrived. Evan was telling a story about a client who tried to pay him in artisan honey and exposure. Laughter, napkins, a flourish of forks. My mother turned to me, her mouth soft with wine. "Your abuelo," she said, as if remembering him gave me courage, "was a romantic. He wasted money rescuing lost causes. You don't have to do the same." "What's a lost cause?" I asked. She gestured around us. "This." "Mom," Sophia said, a soft warning. "What?" My mother lifted her chin. "She wants to be included. She can handle an opinion." "I can handle a lot, including harvest after a Category 2, including 40-hour stretches in rubber boots, including decisions that keep payroll met. What I can't handle is pretending none of you said what you said when you thought I wasn't listening." "And what did we say?" my mother asked. "That I'm playing, that I left when it got hard, that stone cellars are for men with bigger voices." A cousin coughed. Evan studied his glass. Sophia, to her credit, looked sorry in a way that didn't make a show of itself. Cal stepped back through the door, this time with the pinched look he saves for power outages. Ms. Reyes, we have a stuck valve on tank 12. It can wait, but it shouldn't." Evan smirked. "Go save a valve." "Go do what you do," my mother said, as if to prove her point. I went. We cracked the valve with a rubber mallet, bled off a hiss of CO2, and watched the pressure settle like a wintering animal finding its den. When we finished, Cal's sleeves were soaked. He pushed his hair off his forehead and said, "Quiet. You don't owe them the truth, but you might owe yourself saying it out loud." "I don't want a scene." "A scene's already happening," he said. "You can write it or be written into it." I slept badly, with the bottling line hum below my bed, and woke early to light that was so clean it felt like drinking water. At breakfast, my family made room, not out of kindness, but because the deputy had called to say the county board was arriving at noon. The cousins thought it was about Sophia's work at the bank. She let them think so.
At 11:59, people who weren't Reyes began to fill the barrel hall. Tourists, weekenders, the older couple who brings homemade peach pie every harvest and leaves it by the lab door. The deputy climbed a milk crate at the end of the hall, tapped the microphone, and smiled. "We're here," she said, "to recognize Stone Hollow for resilience, innovation, and for that intangible courage communities rely on more than they admit. We're here to honor the anonymous winemaker who led the rebuild after the flood, who insisted the work stay here, and who, against good advice, bet on our taste buds." My mother sat forward, an almost smile breaking the surface. Sophia touched her sleeve. The deputy lifted a plaque. "To Northstar," she said, "whose name we don't have to say to be guided by it, but sometimes names matter." She looked at me. Cal's eyes found mine. The room recalibrated around the silence. I stepped out from behind the post. It wasn't dramatic. No gasp, no fainting aunt, just a shift, like a vine finding the wire it's been reaching for. I climbed the crate, took the plaque, and held it the way you hold something breakable that used to be part of you. "Hi," I said. "Some of you know me as the one who left? I didn't. I went where I had to go to learn how to come back." A murmur, recognition, confusion, a chorus of small recalculations. "My name is Maya Reyes, and I'm Northstar." Someone clapped, then someone else, and then the room startled into it. Cal whistled softly through his teeth. The peach pie couple beamed like grandparents. The server from last night grinned down at his apron. I saw Sophia's mouth form the word "oh." Evan blinked like a fluorescent tube flickering to life. My mother's face went very still, the way frost stills a field. I thanked the growers who doubled back at dawn after the hurricane, the cellar rats who learned to love the sound of hydrometers clinking, the volunteer fire department who pumped our floor dry the night we thought we were done. I didn't mention the trust or the legal gymnastics or the board meetings where men twice my age explained my own spreadsheets to me. I didn't mention the anonymous donation that kept us afloat between vintages. I didn't mention my mother's email, found 6 months earlier in an old family account I'd been asked to help decommission, the one where she'd written to a visiting consultant a decade ago, "Maya isn't serious, don't encourage her." I didn't mention the pang in my chest that turned into a sparrow and fluttered there for days. I did say this. I didn't want to be the story. I wanted the wine to be the story. But here we are, and stories are really just vessels for what we can't say any other way. I looked at my family. I don't want a throne. I want a table. I want us to sit at it together without pretending we've never heard each other. The deputy handed me the citation and shook my hand. People drifted toward the tasting bar the way people do when praise turns into a line for something they can sip. My mother stood. She didn't clap. She didn't leave. She walked to me through the afternoise and stopped close enough that I saw the tiny white scar near her left eyebrow, a relic of the bottles she'd dropped the day my father didn't come home. "I told him not to fill your head with fairy tales," she said, almost a whisper. "I thought I was guarding you from disappointment. Maybe I was guarding myself." "I know," I said, because suddenly I did. "You did what I could not," she said. Her voice wobbled, then steadied. "I'm sorry for mistaking my fear for your limit." Sophia slipped beside her, her hand finding mine, squeezing once. Evan hovered, loss and calculation fighting in his eyes and canceling each other out. "Come to the crush pad," I said. "The bins are coming in from row 23. Abuelo would hate if we missed first pick." We walked together into the afternoon, the air warm with the promise of sugar and work. The first lug arrived, purple and bright. I plucked a grape and split it open on my tongue. The acid was a bell. The sweetness answered. I thought of Abuelo's margin note, the star he'd drawn without knowing where I'd find it. I tasted and saw the map.
We spent the evening lugging, sorting, laughing like people who were learning a new dialect of the same language. When the light thinned, Sophia asked if she could punch down the cap. Evan asked what a cap was. My mother watched me move through the room and did not correct my hands. Later, after the bins were empty and the hoses coiled like sleeping snakes, I climbed the stairs to the bunk room above the bottom line. I laid down on the narrow bed and listened to the tanks breathe. The hum didn't bother me anymore. It sounded like a heartbeat I could finally place. We never put my name on the label. We didn't need to. Northstar is still a promise more than a person. Stone Hollow joined the Community Trust formally last fall. We put 2 seats on the board aside for workers who do their shift in boots. My mother sits on the education committee now. She's the one who insisted our apprenticeship stipend include childcare, because she said talent doesn't wait for a sitter.
Sophia went back to school on nights and weekends, ag economics, and started a small program that pays our pickers a bonus pegged to case prices, not hours. She says it's the first spreadsheet that ever felt like art. Evan left logistics for a while and tried sales. Turns out he's good at telling the truth when he can taste it. He's learning the word enough. We turned the bunk room into a tiny library with a window seat that looks over the bottling line. Abuelo's notebook sits in a glass case beneath the sign that says, "Start here." People write notes on index cards and slip them into a wooden box with a slit on top. We read them with coffee at 6 a.m. during harvest. Most of them say some version of the same thing. Thank you for reminding us work can be love if you let it. Cal still flicks the lights twice when he's happy. The peach pie couple shows up with 2 pies now because you always make it disappear. The deputy comes by with tourists and refuses to use a microphone, insisting a room this size should be taught to listen. Sometimes, very early, before the mist lifts off the lake, I walk row 23 and read the vines like scripture. Leaf spacing, tendril reach, the way the clusters angle toward morning. I taste a berry and close my eyes and see the map again. I think of kitchens and emails and the small meannesses we pass around like bread. I think of the table we are building anyway. And I realize that we didn't save Stone Hollow. It saved us first, in ways we can list and ways we can only drink.